What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Bones, Season 12, Episode 1, The Hope and the Horror. And this is the final chapter, according to the title of the season. Final season of Bones has begun. And, yeah, it's a good way to start off the season, in my opinion. And especially based on last season. I think, if you go back and watch my reviews of Season 11, not a big fan of Season 11. I had a lot of problems with it. I had thought some of the episodes were really dumb. I thought the formula was so just, you could read it like a book. And to be fair, while this episode was good, the formula was there. If you're wondering what the formula is, well, normally there are several suspects in a case. You see all the people involved, you see who the possible suspects could be, and it's almost like the show thinks, oh, we're going to make it the one person that nobody thought it was. And so everybody suspects this person, then they suspect this person, and then they suspect this person, and then they suspect this person, and then finally the one person that was not suspected, that ends up being who it is. At least most of the time. There were a couple episodes where they played with the formula a little bit, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's good. But for the most part, that's what the formula was, and in this episode, that's also what the formula is. Halfway through, I had it figured out. Because they already suspected the psychiatrist that Bones was seeing last episode. They suspected the girl psychiatrist, not psychiatrist, what was she? Like profiler, I think. They suspected her at one point as well. And pretty much nobody on the team could have possibly done it. And so I'm like, okay, well, they still haven't suspected Addy's doctor that works at the place, the hospital where he is, so probably going to be him. And so as soon as they find out about, oh, it was a conjoined twin, they probably had it cut off, and they all of a sudden start aging the face. I'm like, let me guess. You're going to have them darken the skin, and you're going to have them add a beard and glasses. Well, I can program it to see if he's Eastern Indian, so I can darken the skin tone, add a beard and glasses. Oh my gosh, I know who it is. I'm like, oh, of course. That being said, though, the rest of it was really good. First of all, the reveal of Zack Addy coming back at the end of last season saved at least half of last season. The entire storyline with this serial killer that's collecting all of these puppet shows and making the bodies look like puppets, that was interesting. And then revealing Zack Addy and making us think, oh, what if it's him at the end of last season, that made the entire second half of last season interesting. And that interest kept on into this episode. I mean, having him involved is a great move in my opinion. Because it felt like his story was not done even after he went to the asylum. He went there, and then we had one episode where Sweets was actually talking to him because he escaped from the asylum to help them out on a case. And he told Sweets, I didn't kill that lobbyist. I just said I did because I would get put here instead of in a hospital. Or not in a hospital, in a jail. Because I wouldn't do well in jail. And so it was kind of like, well, his story's not over then. Like, clearly, if he didn't kill that guy, then we should be seeing him again at some point, right? And so all of these seasons go by, and finally, season 11, at the very end, he's returned, and he's back, and now we actually get to talk to him. We get to hear his side of the story. He finally gets to admit at the end, I didn't kill that lobbyist because I can't kill people. And so, I'm glad. It was a really well done story. The acting was spot on, in my opinion. I mean, sometimes it can get a little cheesy. Aubrey is, in my opinion, probably the goofiest character, but in this one he was a lot more... It's like he toned down that side of himself because this episode was supposed to be a bit more serious. It was supposed to be a bit more grounded in reality. And so he made one Hannibal Lecter joke, and he may have made one joke to Booth, but that was it. The rest of his quirks and goofiness that normally make me laugh, he toned it down for this episode, and I'm glad, because this isn't the episode for it. On top of that, Zack Addy, exactly like I remember him. He's weird, he doesn't talk right, he sounds like he's a robot almost. That's pretty much what I saw. It was really awesome to see him back, because it kind of captured the wonder and the nostalgia of the first couple seasons where the show was new and fresh, and now that we're in the 12th season, it felt like the show had kind of run its course. It felt like it was sort of running out of ideas, and it became bland. Reintroducing him reminded me of the first season a little bit, and back when that time when it was like, oh, this show is awesome. So I loved having him back. I thought the case itself was interesting enough, just watching as they're trying to figure out, and there's no real proof that Zack did it, and then Zack ends up trying to figure it out, and he realizes that all the evidence points to him, and so he thinks, well, dissociative identity disorder is probably me. And so I like that fact. I like the fact that it wasn't, the case itself wasn't straightforward, even though it followed the Bones formula, where the last person we suspect ends up being the killer. The way that we got there was actually really interesting to follow. It was fun to watch. On top of that, some of the personal stuff was really interesting in this episode. We find out that apparently Zack has been following their emails for the last several years, because I guess they stopped talking to him at one point. And so, from he's in an asylum, from that standpoint, it's like, okay, yeah, that's kind of creepy. But if you really think about it, in his mind, he doesn't understand social customs. He doesn't understand that snooping on people's emails are wrong. In his mind, it's just like, I want to find out how my friends are doing. I want to know how they're doing. I haven't talked to them in forever. I want to know what they're up to. So reading their emails is just a logical choice for him. I'm like, I kind of feel bad for him, and that's honestly how I felt whenever he ended up telling us that he was the apprentice of that serial killer so long ago. I felt bad for him. I felt like he didn't understand. He didn't get it. He didn't understand why that's wrong. He just knew that he had found somebody to follow, and that was it. So, yeah, it was really sad seeing that. Seeing the discussion between him and Hodgins about his legs, I thought that was also very emotional. Hodgins finding out that he's actually the one responsible for getting the feeling back in his legs. And ultimately, it doesn't really go anywhere. It just ends up, he can't feel them at the end of this episode anymore, so it's permanently, he's paralyzed for sure. And I kind of like that, because whenever we first found this whole storyline, with Hodgins getting paralyzed, there was a moment where he finally accepted the wheelchair. He accepted the fact that this was his life now. And then the very next episode, it felt like it was going to do that cliche thing, because now his legs are moving again. He's kicking the table, and he doesn't realize it. And so I was like, really, are we going to do this? So the fact that now it's gone back, and it's just like, okay, that was a moment that we built up because Zack Addy is coming back into the show, and he's responsible for that. But now that that's over, we're back to Hodgins is paralyzed, and he's accepted it. It's sad for him, because for a moment he had hope, but now he's back to reality. He realizes now, this is it. This is my reality now. And he's accepted it, and I like that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. It sounds like they might be getting Zack Addy out of the asylum, so maybe he's coming back onto the show. That would be great for the final season, to have him reintroduced to the show and brought back in, because I'd like to see that. He's a super genius with no social skills. That adds some charm to his character. That was one of the things that I really liked about him in the first couple seasons. Is there were some jokes made at his expense. There were some jokes that he made because he didn't understand social customs. That, I mean, even in this episode, whenever I can't remember what he and Aubrey were talking about, but there was a moment Aubrey was like questioning him, and he started telling him about the fact that he was snooping on their emails, and Aubrey's just like, wait, you were looking at their emails, you're spying on them. And then Zach's just like, I've come to understand that honesty is the best policy, but based on the look on your face, I'm starting to realize that axiom may not be true. And I'm just like, the way he says it, and the very particular word choice is kind of funny, in my opinion. So bringing him back into the show, I think, would really help this final season to go out on a high note. Because last season was not good. Last season was just something I want to forget. This would be a great way to make up for all of last season, to have him back in the show, to have him, even if he's not necessarily back at the Jeffersonian, because I don't think that would be allowed, at least not without some loopholes. So even if he's just back in the show, getting reintroduced to society, hanging out with them again, maybe helping them solve the case from the outside, I wouldn't even mind that, just as long as we get to see him in some form or fashion. As long as this was not just a one-episode appearance and that's the end of it. We're not going to see him again for the rest of the show. So, yeah, all in all, really good episode. The villain, I was a little bit disappointed we didn't get a more compelling villain, I guess. even though I knew it was coming, at the same time I was kind of disappointed that it's just the Doctor. That was it. His story, I guess, could have been interesting if we explored it a little bit more, but so much of the focus was on Zack that at the final moment they finally realized, oh, it was a conjoined twin, and then that separation happened at a young age, so now this person has assumed the identity of both he and his twin, and so his twin is the one doing the killing, I guess. I don't know. They didn't really explain his motivations that well. They didn't explain why one of his personalities wants to kill or whatever. I truly don't know. They didn't explain the motivation very well. I was kind of lost there. But either way, still a good episode. Still a good entry for this last season. I'm excited to see what they're going to do with it. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What did you like and dislike about this episode? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Bones reviews. I will see you at the next one. Peace out.